This week on IPTT, Sean and I discuss what happens when strangers knock on the door and invite a family to make an impossible decision to save humanity, as we discuss the 2023 movie, Knock at the Cabin.
This is I Pierce the Toast. I'm Sean.
And I'm AJ. Let's make some toast.
Welcome back to I Pierce the Toast.
I think you mean IPTT. I said it in my cold open.
Did you?
I did.
Oh, you son of a bitch. You circumvented me in the cold open.
Yeah. It was already there.
You rotten bastard. AJ, what's going on in the news?
The only thing I can really think of is that Joe Jonas and his wife are getting divorced.
Is this something they are like mutually agreeing to? Is this a good thing, a bad thing? Like, how's everybody feel about it?
It kind of sounds like that it's mutual, but there was something that happened on a Ring camera that forced him to make this decision, so I don't know.
I'm going to have to look that the fuck up. I have no idea what you're talking about. So you know how we were talking about Drew Barrymore last time?
Yeah.
Apparently, Bill Maher is going to throw his hat in that ring.
Get fucked. Why?
You got me. But apparently he's a member of the WGA. He's in the union. So I don't know what's prompting this, but I have to assume there's, I don't know if it's greed or if it's, like a worry of, falling into obscurity, because that I kind of get, if you're not on the air constantly, especially in a game like Drew's or Bill's, if you're not constantly putting out material, you run the risk of people kind of, falling off, like, your regular viewers or subscribers. So, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, it's like, dude, you're in the fucking union. Yeah, that's really the only thing I've heard. Obviously, we've got some pretty good movies coming out here in the next couple of weeks. Nothing comes off the top of my head, but
you don't even know what's coming out.
I remember they're good. Well, no, there's one. What is it called? It's it's okay. So the gal that I casted.
The gal?
Yes, I'm apparently my father in the 1960s. I know there's some good movies coming out here in the next couple of weeks.
There's some spooky movies coming out.
Movies coming out. What's that one that with the Conjuring?
The Nun.
The Nun. Yeah, is that out already? Or?
I think that's already out.
Okay.
A Haunting in Venice actually comes out this week.
Oh, nice. There's one that I'm really looking forward to. Totally Killer. Have you heard about this one?
I have not.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this. So it's what is it? Kiernan Shipka. Yeah, Kiernan Shipka. The one that plays Sabrina in the new Chilling Adventures on Netflix. If I'm understanding the premise correctly, her mom was either killed by this killer or she was like the single survivor of this killer in the 1980s. And somehow I think the killer like comes back to get her, but she inadvertently winds up going into the past to the night that all of her mom's friends died. And it totally sold me like immediately, because the opening kind of scene in the preview is her going up to the police going, "Have you seen Back to the Future? Yeah, that's happening to me right now." That's great. So, that's Totally Killer. I think it's going to be out on, I don't know, probably Netflix or something.
So it's not going to be in theaters?
Oh, it's going to be on Prime.
Oh, okay, so Prime.
Yeah, it will premiere at the Fantastic Fest on September 28th, and it's scheduled to be released on Prime on October 6th. So, yeah, people will be able to watch that on October 6th on Amazon Prime. So, not released in theaters, but I don't know. It looks like a lot of fun to me, and I'm really enjoying the renaissance of Kiernan Shipka. I've been loving a lot of the stuff she's been in.
Well, you mentioned Ellen Burstyn on the last episode, and we talked about Linda Blair. The Exorcist Believer is coming out.
Oh, yeah. God, my dad is so looking forward to that one.
That
good. You can take my dad. I fucking hate those movies.
Okay. there's also Five Nights at Freddy's, the movie's coming out soon too.
Wait, Five Nights at Freddy's?
Yeah.
Like Freddy Krueger or
this
Freddy's
is
the
like
burger joint?
Video game, the burger joint.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. I thought it was a pizza place. Is it a burger place?
Yeah, it's a burger place.
Oh, okay.
Wait, you've never been to Freddy's?
No. It's a game. There's a game that's based at it's almost like Chuck E. Cheese. It's a very famous video game that a lot of people play, and they're making a movie about it.
I've never heard of this.
Really?
No.
Yeah, we need to look this up after this, because it's actually really cool. Matthew Lillard's going to be in it. And Josh Hutcherson.
And you did tell me about is this video game I think maybe coming out? It's actually the Killer Clowns from Outer Space video game.
Yeah, because I messed up in the last Killer Clowns episode that we did, because I really thought that I had played a Killer Clowns game, but no, I've actually played Ninja Clowns when I was a kid, and it was not
Ninja Clowns, Killer Clowns.
No, it's very fucking different. But we're not talking about Killer Clowns this week.
What are we talking about this week, AJ?
This week we're talking about a 2023 movie. I know we're getting into the present now.
Certified fresh.
I know. We have not actually done a recent movie. We did one from what was Jojo Rabbit, 2017, something like that?
Something like that. It,
So
was,
not
it was recent history,
recent
but not... ordinarily I'd say we're pretty much 2005 and earlier on this podcast. So
2005 and earlier?
I mean, yeah, well, mostly just because of you. Me, yeah, I'm like 1995
Yeah, you're like
and earlier.
1980 and like...
How dare you? The Wizard was the 1990s.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. When was Killer Clowns?
So a knock at the cabin. That sounds like a hoot.
Yeah, see, I enjoyed the movie. Sean did not enjoy the movie as much as
I didn't say I didn't enjoy it. I said we're going to get there. We're going to get there. So, AJ, tell us, what is this movie about?
So this movie, in a nutshell, is about a family that is vacationing in the woods, and a group comes and pays them a visit and asks them a pretty hefty question. They essentially ask them to save the world by sacrificing one of themselves. There's a lot of rules that go into it. We'll get into it when we get into the actual
Okay,
plot.
I was gonna say, like, do you want me to start asking about the rules?
No,
'Cause
no,
I think
no.
the rules are important.
We are going to get into it whenever we talk about the plot, but right now, that's pretty much it. They're asking them to save the world by sacrificing one of their own.
All right. Well, then before we get into the specifics of the plot, AJ, who's in this movie?
Well, first we got to talk about the director, M. Night Shyamalan himself.
For those of our audience that are unfamiliar, that's just the way AJ always calls M. Night Shyamalan. He always calls him M. Night Shyamalan.
He's M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong. He has a lot of great movies. All right, I'll call him by his real name because he deserves some cred on this one. He did The Sixth Sense, Signs, The Village. He also had some very unfortunate movies, which he's always just kind of depicted as someone that can make a great movie, but for a while he just fell off. I
think that's the problem is he was good initially because he had some good ideas for films as well as, obviously let's talk about the thing he's most well known for. The twist. Anybody that knows M. Night Shyamalan's work knows that you're typically expecting the twist. Like, obviously, we didn't see it coming the first time we saw one of his films, which was The Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
So, we were all very surprised when we found out. And I swear to Christ, if you don't know already, I'm sorry, but Jesus, it's been 30 years at this point or something crazy. Bruce Willis is dead the whole time.
You son of a bitch.
I know. Anywho, but that kind of introduced us to M. Night Shyamalan. And then...
No, you say his name correctly.
M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong. But then we see a second film of his, and then we get another twist. And so from that point forward, we just expected it. So whether it was Unbreakable or The Village, Signs, like there was always a twist at the end, some big reveal, something that we, didn't see coming. So that became his signature. And those early films were pretty decent, but I think after a while, we just kind of were like, yeah, okay.
No, it's not even that. He made some really bad movies. Lady in the Water, I never even saw it, but I heard it was just completely...
hot garbage.
Yeah, it was hot garbage. Then he did or I guess not then, but he did do the
Last Airbender.
The Last Airbender, which everyone knows this is one of the worst movies of all time. It is very bad.
It's probably one of the greatest fan-hated films ever.
Oh, yeah.
Because, of course, even people that were just film goers that watched it and maybe weren't familiar with, Avatar: The Last Airbender were like, yeah, this wasn't that great. But the fans of the original show, oh, God, they tore that thing apart.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, they just obliterated that all over the internet sphere.
See, I was a fan, and it was just... I was so excited for this movie. I was also excited for Dragon Ball when that came out, but both of them let me down. But this was a letdown because the story of the show, if you've never seen the show, is very great. It's very detailed. There's a lot of really strong characters, and he fucked it all up.
But to get us away from the M. Night bashing, here's what I will say about M. Night Shyamalan. He's willing to do something a lot of directors these days don't seem to be willing to do. He's willing to take risks. And I at least appreciate that. He took a look at The Last Airbender, and the majority of us were not happy with the finished product, but he was willing to set a vision and say, I want to see if I can bring this to life. And that's what he does. He has a vision and he pushes for it. And he tries, he puts his all into bringing that vision, to the screen. So I'm going to give him that. And especially with this film, because like I said, it's not that I didn't like it. I just wasn't as impressed as I was hoping to be, but it wasn't by no means a bad film.
Oh no,
it was.
I liked it. I thoroughly liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to overload this up front, but it was well acted. The cinematography, except for the opening scene, dear fucking god, I can't wait till we talk about that. Was pretty well done. It flowed well. Generally speaking, I thought it brought a lot of questions to the forefront that are important questions, philosophically. So I didn't have a major problem with the film. I just wasn't as impressed as I thought I was going to be. But that's all I'll say about M. Night. So, but he's a good director. He just sometimes his ambition overshadows his, I don't know, his ability to bring that vision to life, because sometimes it does kind of fall on undesirable territory.
I thoroughly enjoy his work. I mean, there are those couple, I'm not going to say couple, there was quite a few where he just, it didn't live up to what he can do. But I mean, in the recent years, he did Split, he did Glass.
That's actually a great point. I like that you said it that way. That's why we were disappointed with those films, because we know he can do so well.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen M. Night at his absolute best, and then even, like you were saying, in the more recent years, Split, holy fuck, what an accomplishment. What was the follow-up to Split? Glass, where we finally, because obviously we got the twist ending on Split to find out that it was part of the Unbreakable universe. And then we get the follow-up, the final chapter, Glass, which...
Where you bring them all together.
Right, and I didn't think Glass was necessarily, like, the greatest film ever, but it helped wrap everything up. Sometimes it's hard to do the last film, to wrap everything up,
And I really liked it, because I'm not going to ruin this one in case we ever do Glass, or we do that whole trilogy, but it does tie it together to where you know that you're not going to get another Bruce Willis movie, which is great for us, because of, unfortunately, what's happening with the aphasia that Bruce Willis is going through right now. But we're going to move on from M. Night Shyamalan. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm still
I can't ever not laugh at that.
I am 100% still an M. Night Shyamalan film. It's Shyamalan.
You are an M. Night Shyamalan film.
Sorry, I'm a
you
fan.
Are a twist
I am
ending.
a fan of M. Night Shyamalan. Maybe that is the twist. Haha, I'm actually a movie. But I am actually a fan, and I will say it's up there with the movies I really like by him. But we're going to move on to who the producers are.
And who produced the film, AJ?
So this guy's name is actually pretty funny. His name is Mark Bienstock. It's not spelled Beanstalk, but it's Bien stock.
So his name's Beanstalk.
Yeah, it's Beanstalk.
Is he a tall guy? Please tell me he's a tall guy.
I don't know. I mean, I saw some
I can
pictures,
go up to him
but
and
I
say,
didn't
why don't you
really...
get the fuck back up your Beanstalk?
I didn't look up comparative pictures of him versus other people. I just...
Was that a part of your research?
No. He's actually worked with M. Night Shyamalan a couple different times. He's worked on Split, Old, Glass, but then he also did one of... I'm not going to say it's one of my favorite movies, but it's a shitty horror film that I like called See No Evil. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Yes, I've seen See No Evil.
It has Kane in it, so he has another wrestler in there, because one of the stars of this was a former wrestler. And the other producer, because there were two producers, but including M. Night Shyamalan as well, is Ashwin Rashan, who did, unfortunately, he worked on After Earth with M. Night Shyamalan and Old.
After Earth. I don't even think I remember
that
one.
Was supposed to be the star vehicle for Will Smith's son Jaden.
Oh God, that
did
one!
Not
Jesus.
Do well. Oh. Yeah, I started watching it. I could not.
No wonder I couldn't remember it, because I don't think I was about to say, I don't think I could even make it through that whole film.
Yeah,
it was not good.
It was not good. But he did also do Old with M. Night Shyamalan, and he also did Devil. I don't know if you remember that. That's the one where people... And that's not an M. Night Shyamalan.
I was going to say, Devil's the one that's in the elevator, right?
Yeah, that's the one that's in the elevator.
And which one's Old? Is that an M. Night Shyamalan one?
That's a newer one that came out.
Right, that's the one where they're like on the beach and they're like going in the water. See, my wife said she hated that one.
A lot of people said they didn't like it, but I'm going to watch it, because I from people that I know that are M. Night Shyamalan films... No, M. Night Shyamalan films. M. Night Shyamalan fans have actually said it's a good movie.
AJ, I want you to tell me, what is a device that produces air that people have in their houses?
A fan.
A fan, okay. And what is a collection of moving pictures?
A movies.
Or it could also be called a...
Talkies.
Son of a bitch. Swear to God, we're gonna get you the difference between fan and film. It's gonna happen.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Moving on, though, we're gonna separate the cast by the different groups that they're a part of. So I'm going to.
Oh, okay, smart. I was
so I'm gonna say the family, and then the group, because there is a reveal on who these people actually are. We're just going to say the family involves Eric, Andrew, and Wen. And Eric is played by Jonathan Groff. You will probably recognize him from Hamilton as King George III, Frozen as Kristoff, and he played Holden Ford in Mindhunter. Now, I'm not as familiar with the work from Ben Aldridge, who played Andrew. He was in, spoiler alert, as Kit Pennyworth. That's a new show about... It's basically like in the same Batman universe, but it's like before all this, and Alfred is supposed to be like a spy.
Fun. Okay, yeah, I think I have heard about that, yeah.
He plays Thomas Wayne in there, and then he was in a movie called Our Girl as Captain Charles James. Those are pretty much his bigger roles.
Okay. Now, which one was he? Was he the more aggressive husband, or the one
he was the more aggressive?
The one that gets the concussion.
That's the aggressive one.
The aggressive guy. Okay.
Yeah. So, Our Girl, I guess, is a show, and he played like the lead role in that show.
Okay.
Then we have the premiere role. This is the second time we've had a premiere role for Kristen Cui, who played Wen. Now we're going to get into the group. We have Dave Bautista as Leonard. You will recognize him as, he literally just went by his last name whenever he wrestled, as Batista. He was in Guardians of the Galaxy as Drax, and in Dune as Glasso Raban. And I'm super stoked to see him in the newer Dunes.
I actually really loved him in this role, to be honest.
It was really good.
And we're going to get into it a little bit more, but I tried to picture somebody else doing this role. I don't think there was anybody that could have played it better, to be honest.
It's pretty interesting how this all kind of unfolded on his casting, because Shyamalan actually looked at his role in Blade Runner 2049, I believe it is, and he was needing someone who was going to be able to play a giant, but it also was emotional and eloquent, but he couldn't find anyone. He's like, this person doesn't exist.
Literally what I was thinking. I thought, okay, could you put The Rock in that role? No, because he doesn't have the emotional intelligence. Could you put Jason Momoa in that role? Another, because I was thinking big guys just like Dave Bautista. And again, doesn't have that, emotional, that ability to really emotionally connect with the audience. Those two are great action stars, but they're hard asses and they're a little sarcastic, and that's fine. But then I thought about Dave Bautista, and I was like, God, he is such a... And I'm not using this word derogatorily at all. He's such a kitten in this film. He's such a sweetheart.
Really is. He really is.
You just want to get a big old bear hug from the guy. He's a sweetheart.
Really feel compelled by him, you really want to listen to him, but then you don't want to listen to. We'll get into the plot.
It does. Yeah, absolutely.
He plays this role so well, and when M. Night reached out to him, he really saw someone that was looking to redefine themselves as an actor, because he had done, Guardians of the Galaxy and everything like that, but he wanted to step outside that and become something bigger, and that's why he was cast. And I think he did a fantastic job.
That's awesome. Who else we got?
We have Nikki Amuka Bird as Sabrina. She was in the newest version of The Omen as Dr. Brecker. She was in Old as Patricia Carmichael, and the unfortunate movie Jupiter Ascending as Diomika Shane.
What you didn't like Jupiter Ascending? Didn't like Mila Kunis and
as the dog man and freaking
Magic Mike Tatum? Magic Mike? You didn't like that? Wasn't good for you? Didn't appreciate the characters?
No, didn't tickle my fancy.
Now, is she the nurse?
She's the nurse, yes.
The nurse. Okay, gotcha. All right, who else we got?
Then you have Abby Quinn as Adrian. She was in Torn Hearts as Jordan Wilder, and this was interesting to me. I really want to see this movie. Good Girls Get High as Sam.
That's the movie. Good Girls Get High.
Literally, I looked at the premise because I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah, about? Like what was the premise? I gotta hear this.
That's the premise, is that they want to basically, just a bunch of good girls want to prove that they can just get high, and that's it. So
the premise is just high school.
Yes, pretty much.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, who else we got?
Last, because that's really this is it for the cast. I mean, you have some cameos and stuff like that. M. Night Shyamalan appears at one point as a infomercial person.
Oh, but you just can't skate over that. Like you said, M. Night Shyamalan appears. Why is that significant, though?
Because he does it in every movie.
He does it in every movie. Hell yeah.
I forget what they call that. Is it a calling card? What is it? Whenever an actor...
Oh, I don't know. Like whenever a director, like with every Marvel film, you have to, well, before he passed, you had an appearance by Stan Lee.
Martin Scorsese had something in each of his films. He has something that kind of
like
goes
in every
back.
Seinfeld episode, there was like some reference to Superman. Yeah, I don't know what that is, what that's called.
Quentin Tarantino has the same brand of cigarettes in all of his.
Yeah, that's right. What is it called? It's like not even
the
a real
Apple
brand, right?
something.
Yeah, something.
Yeah. But yeah, it's basically just like something that happens is he shows up in this movie. But other than that, the last one that we have is Rupert Grint, who plays Redmond, quote unquote Redmond. We'll get to that. He is most famously known for starring in the Harry Potter series as Ron Weasley.
Sorry, Ron Weasley?
Yeah, Weasley.
Ron Weasley. I don't think I remember him.
He's not one of the three main stars of that movie at all.
No, not at all.
Not at all. No.
I think he's a very minor character that only appears in like maybe a few minutes of each film. I actually really loved getting to see him in this because, like, I mean, I think that's one of the things I also like about M. Night Shyamalan. How much was Bruce Willis even really like the big star when he put him in Unbreakable? Like, I don't remember him being in a whole lot around that very specific time frame. But that's M. Night Shyamalan going, you know what? I like you. I know you're a good performer, and I don't care if you're typecasted. I want to stick you in something. Because how many people are going to Rupert Grint and saying, hey, come be in my movie? No, they're all going, no, I don't want Ron Weasley in my fucking film.
I think Bruce Willis was still a big star because he had already done Die Hard. He had done Sixth Sense. It was just, he had worked with him before, so let's put him in there. Bruce Willis is a bad choice for that one, I think.
I don't know, because that
would have been the same time as Armageddon, my guy.
Wait, was it? When was it? When did Unforgiven come out?
Unbreakable came out. I'm thinking about
Unbreakable, not Unforgiven.
2002?
So that would have been 6 years after
Armageddon?
Yes.
Armageddon came out in 1997.
So that would be about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
The math's not mathin'.
Shut the fuck up. It's 2000 is when it came out. So it's only, 3 years? 4 years?
Oh, so it's only 3 years? Okay, I might be wrong about that. I could be wrong.
He also did The Kid around that time, too, I think.
Okay, see, that's what I'm talking about. The Kid. Oh, that was not a good movie. Don't even pretend.
We're not talking about Bruce Willis right now. We're talking about Rupert Grint. And Rupert Grint also was in Moonwalkers as Johnny Thorpe. It's a movie about the
people walking on the moon. Yeah.
No, it's about like basically conspiracy theories that go into that.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And I really do want to see this movie. It's called CBGB. It's a movie about a famous bar where a lot of acts got discovered, and he plays Cheetah Chrome from Band.
Oh, is that the... Okay,
it's a really seedy bar.
I really am going to hate myself for this reference, but CBGB's, I think, is the bar that they mention in Gilmore Girls. Because Lane's band is like, oh my god, we're going to play CBGB's, because that's where everybody gets discovered, because it's like where all the great bands started. Yeah, I do know that one. I know. I'm just as disappointed in me as you are, AJ.
Anyway, this is another movie, as Sean was saying, that M. Night Shyamalan, he really just finds people that he likes. And Rupert Grint in this movie, you almost don't recognize him because he does play a vastly different character than what you're used to seeing him on the screen. Like he
Absolutely.
plays in Harry Potter, he's like a lovable friend and all that kind of stuff. But in here, he's a very gruff American American character who you kind of feel remorse for, but then you don't, but then you really do.
And he's actually kind of contrasted
against
the other three, because of the four of the group, as you're calling them, he's really the only one that is showing any major outward aggression.
Yeah.
All the other three are very empathetic and understanding to what is being asked of the family.
And not only the family, you'll find out it's also being asked of the group.
Oh, absolutely. Good point.
Now, we're going to briefly just talk about some fun facts really quick, but one of them is that this is based on...
Before you go into the fun facts, I think it's really important we say this. Ordinarily, we don't feel the need to go into this because most of the time we're talking about movies that are 20, 30, sometimes even pushing 40 years old.
Yeah.
However, this movie just came out this year. So if you are listening, you're new to our podcast, please understand we are about to spoil the absolute fuck out of this film.
Yes, we 100% in this podcast, if you've never listened to us, we do go through the entire movie. We analyze it along the way, but we do explain the entire movie. We leave out some things, obviously. We can't get everything because I don't want to listen to a 3-hour podcast. I think we've only booked in at 2 hours one time. we're trying to relay to you what we saw, what the actual plot is, so you can kind of listen to us and kind of go along with the ride and relive it yourself. So if you're like, don't spoil this for me, you're kind of fucked.
Yeah. So you've been warned. If you haven't seen this movie yet and you want to see it first, turn us off, go watch the movie, and come back and talk to us later.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, AJ. You were going to give me some fun facts.
Oh, yeah. Just a couple, because a lot of it is spoiling for the spoilers already, and I don't want to spoil at least part for you.
You're going to spoil the spoilers?
No, I'm not going to spoil the spoiler.
You know what I say to spoil the spoilers?
Kraken? So this is based on a book by Paul G. Tremblay called The Cabin at the End of the World. As I mentioned before, I have not read this book.
As I told you, I of course read the book because I am an avid reader. I read many words.
I don't know if we mentioned this on the podcast. Yes, me and Sean did have a conversation. It might be in here, it might not. I'm just letting you know. Where I told him I had not read the book, and he was like, so that means you didn't prep. He knows that I spent a lot of time prepping.
Obviously.
So he was like, no, you didn't prep. You fucked up. And I was like, no, shut the hell up. So anyway.
So, neither of us have read the book.
We have not read the book, but I do know that the ending is vastly different than the movie, and I will explain that later.
I did read that.
So
I did read about the fact that the ending of the book was completely different. And I'm curious if in your research, and this is going to be my question, I'm going to pose the question now, and we'll wait till the end to discuss it, but my question is going to be, in your research, did M. Night explain why he decided to go such a vastly different direction here? Because I really feel like he lost something, and that may be one of the reasons why I was a little disappointed with the film. But let's move forward.
If I had to guess, because I didn't actually find that, like I said, this is a very recent movie, so there's interviews and things like that, but I didn't come across this. It's if someone did hear about this, please let us know. And also, before we move any forward, I do want to say, if you're enjoying the podcast, if you're enjoying me and Sean, please like, subscribe, and share the podcast to your friends and family. We want to be able to put out more things for you in the future. We want to be able to have some swag for you. As Jules actually found out in one of our episodes, we do viewer episodes as well, where we have your recommendations and we put them out there. We want to be able to do more of that stuff for you. So if you could just like, subscribe, share, let us know what's going on. There's usually polls in the podcast as well that you can interact with. But like I said, I really don't know the answer to that question. If I had to guess, because the ending is so vastly different and you got to give audiences what they want.
Oh, you think maybe M. Night was
I think he was
kind of looking at, like, maybe did some audience feedback surveys or something, and just thought, you know what, this is where audience would want this to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
I'll buy that for $1. All right, AJ, more fun facts.
All right, just like I said, just a couple before we go into everything. One of them is that, and Sean probably has something to say about this, this whole movie was shot with lenses from the 90s to give a more classic horror look, and even the beginning credits are like reminiscent of an old school horror movie, which I really, really liked.
Honestly, it didn't impact me one way or the other, except for the opening shot, and we'll get to that when we start talking about the plot. Like, seriously, that opening scene, did not care for it. Did not care for it.
And then the last one that I have before we move into everything is that some moviegoers, when I saw this in the theater, were actually given the choice at the beginning of the movie to give up something precious to them, their phones or something like that, and then to ask for a reward later, letting them know that, hey, you have to make an important decision right now, potentially for a reward.
Oh, that's fun.
That's actually really cool, right?
That is neat.
If I had saw that, I'd be like, oh, yeah, for real, I'll buy that for $1, as you say.
As you say in your old man speak.
Speaking of old man speak, I'm going to go off the rails for a second. I have been talking like an old man all freaking week. I put in the chat the other day, and because I work in IT, and there was something that was going on, and I was like, man, that did as much good as pouring a bucket of water on a forest fire. I was like, what the fuck? Where did that come from?
I can smell the Bengay on you right now from that comment.
I also went to go smell it. I went to go fix something one day, and I said, well, let's see if I can get this dog to bark.
Oh, dear God. Oh, well, gee golly willikers, AJ. Yeah. Let's get into the plot of this damn thing.
So the film opens up with a young girl catching grasshoppers, and she's telling them that she won't hurt them, just study them for a while. Now, what did you like about this?
Oh, no, it wasn't that. So the grasshoppers itself is fine. It's very clearly a metaphor. It's her explaining to the she is explaining to the grasshoppers, I don't want to hurt you. I just want to study you for a bit. And you could look at that as a metaphor in a lot of different ways. I kind of took it as she is playing God to these creatures and saying, I don't want to hurt you. I just want to study you for a bit. I promise, this will all turn out okay in the end. Kind of like the entire film. Like, imagine this all is coming down from a God.
So you caught that as well, that there's foreshadowing.
Oh, absolutely. What I didn't like was when little girl sits down and she's collecting it, and here comes Dave Bautista, and what's his character name again? Leonard. Right, of course. It's such a great name. I love it. I just love the idea of a guy like that being called Leonard. I don't know why. So here comes Leonard, and he sits down, and the cinematography we decided to do is this back and forth of these extreme close-ups on their face. And it was, I know it was done on purpose, because we're supposed to be kind of skeeved out by this interaction. Mm-hmm. But it was so fucking creepy and uncomfortable. I absolutely hated it. I understand why, but I did not like it. I thought there were plenty of other ways we could have done this.
I didn't think there was anything wrong with that, but it's okay. But as I just said, she says to the grasshoppers, and obviously you hear one of the puppies in the background barking, and that's just fine.
Yeah, that's probably because the puppy is driving the hound crazy.
So after a brief funny scene where she has a conversation with the grasshopper, she tells the newest one that she's just added to the jar not to fart, and she mentions one of her friends that farts in class. A large man, as we've discussed, comes up and he asks her to talk for a bit. She tells him that she doesn't talk to strangers. He introduces himself as Leonard, and she tells him that her name is Winland, but everyone calls her Win. He then joins her catching grasshoppers. When asked who taught her to catch grasshoppers, she mentions it's Daddy Eric. Shocked that she calls her dad by the first name, she explains that she has two dads, Daddy Eric and Daddy Andrew. I should probably mention that Leonard doesn't seem upset that she has two dads. It's just he's kind of taken aback for a second. But he gives her a flower, and he says that he just picked it for her, and that they can use it to play a game, that where they'll ask each other questions, and each time they ask a question, they'll pull a petal off. Everyone's probably played this game in some fashion or another. And after asking about a scar that she has on her lip, I think it's a cleft palate. I'm pretty sure that's what that was. She seems sad, but she explains that her lip was broken and had to be fixed. And then Leonard tells her that if she could see inside him, she would see that his heart is broken for what he has to do today. That kind of scares her a little bit, because she looks up and she sees three other people approach with weird objects, and then she runs away. Leonard shouts after her that her family is going to need to make a terrible choice, and that she needs to convince her dads to let them in. Wynn runs to get her dads, and she tells them that there's strangers outside carrying weapons, and that they're scary. And the way she says it is just like a kid just trying to get all of her thoughts out. She's like, there's people outside, and they're scary. And they're just like, okay. They kind of shrug her off, and they're not really believing her. But then they go to the front door of what looks to be an Airbnb cabin in the middle of the woods.
Why do you think it's an Airbnb?
Because there was like little literature throughout the cabin that said like, welcome to your stay. And then later on they mentioned that...
Guess I didn't notice that.
They mentioned later on that it was like better than the pictures that they saw online. And it looks like it's just an Airbnb.
Gotcha.
And the entire time I was thinking, because there's some shit that happens in this house, I'm like, are they going to have to pay for that later?
I mean... Not to get ahead of you here, but the group, they were pretty good about, cleaning up after themselves.
Yeah, they were.
So, spoiler.
And as they're kind of like laughing about when making the story up, from what it seems like, they hear 7 loud knocks at the door.
Is that significant that it's 7 knocks?
Yes, it is. So we'll discuss that later.
Oh, okay. All right.
So Leonard, on the other side of the door, politely, and this is why I love Dave Bautista, because you really do want to listen to him, but obviously this family's not going to listen to a stranger, but he's politely telling them that they need to be let in. They won't hurt them. He just says that the 3 people that are with him, Redmond, Adrian, and Sabrina, just want to talk. Eric tells them in return, returning the politeness, he says they will not, and as they kind of have a back and forth, they say that they're going to call the police. And Adrian pipes up in the background, and she's like, hey, I just want you to know, we know that you can't call anybody, because the cell signal out here is awful, and unfortunately, they had to cut the power lines. This was a kind of weird interaction to me, because they're trying to be as polite as possible.
That's what I loved about it. They were so fucking polite.
They were like, hey, so
sorry,
nice.
we cut.
Sorry, we cut your lines.
Hey, sorry, cut your lines. How you doing? Like, very Canadian. Very Canadian.
And then even the next thing that Leonard tells him, he says, if, I'm sorry, but if you won't let us in, they're going to have to find a way in themselves. Andrew, who is one of the other dads, This is where you kind of get a glimpse of him being kind of the more dominant, angry one in the group, and that does come up later. He angrily tells him to leave or he'll have to use his gun, which he quietly tells Eric that it's still locked in the car. He's like, I don't have it on me, but it's in the car. And then the group starts breaking in. Once in, there's a scuffle, and Eric is knocked to the ground and he hits his head. The woman, Sabrina, immediately tells Andrew to let her help him because she's a nurse. And Andrew doesn't really hear that because he's fighting Redmond, and he's giving Redmond the business. He fucks him up quite a bit. And he looks like he may have taken some classes at some point, and Andrew gets the upper hand in this, but then he's surrounded by the rest of the group. And then obviously he has to give up. There's a brief flashback that shows the first meeting with Andrew's parents and Eric that didn't go well, obviously, because they're a gay couple, and you can tell that they just didn't approve of that. I think they mentioned that the family drove 7 hours to spend 30 minutes at the house. Next, we're shown that Eric wakes up in pain, and Sabrina tells the group that he's okay, he's just severely concussed. Leonard says, well, he needs to be clear-headed because there's decisions that they need to make. Leonard steps in front of the group, again, just very, very polite and understanding. He's telling them, I understand that this is a scary situation, and then he asks the rest of the group to introduce themselves. Everyone explains who they are. Even though Redmond seems to be very upset by this, he says it doesn't really matter.
Well, and just get knocked in the face like 7 fucking times. I'll bet that's why. 7. Yeah, it's back. It's fun.
Well, it's just one of those situations where you can tell that everyone else is like, okay, we have to do this. And as they're talking about themselves, they seem very shaken about what they're about to have to do to this family. But Redmond is the one that just seems angry.
Maybe Redmond knew he was going to have to go first.
He did.
Maybe that's why. Because I don't know about you. Like if you and I had to go in a house doing what this group is about to have to do, and you told me I was going to have to go first, I'd probably be a little agitated. I'd probably I'd be my typical old man self, like, fuck this, I hate this place.
See, I think all of them knew what the outcome was going to be because everyone, as they're telling about who they are, with Sabrina just, again, reiterating that she's a nurse, that Leonard is a teacher, Adrian is a cook, and then you find out that Redmond served time, and he's like, even as he says it, he's kind of angry. He's like, I served time, as they say. I had some bad things that happened when I was younger, but I'm better now. That's all he really says. After they get done introducing themselves, Eric tries to reason with them. He's basically saying, I understand that you probably want to change us or you want us to join your group, but no, that's not what's going to happen. And then he says something about the light affecting him due to his concussion. And then Redmond actually starts to help by trying to figure out a way to kind of cover the light, but Leonard stops him and tells him it's time. Leonard then drops a big bombshell on them. He tells them that the 4 of them are there to try to stop the apocalypse. The family has to make a choice to willingly sacrifice one of them to prevent it.
Not one of them, the family, or one of the group?
One of the family.
Okay, so
the family has to decide to sacrifice one of themselves.
Gotcha.
And not only that, but they must kill the one that they choose.
So the person can't commit suicide.
No, you cannot commit suicide. You have to willingly sacrifice yourself.
And the group can't help with the killing.
They cannot help at all.
So basically, if Daddy Eric is the chosen one, Wen and Daddy Andrew, thank you. Wen and Daddy Andrew have to do the killing of Daddy, or I guess just Eric or Andrew could kill Eric, or they wouldn't necessarily have to involve Wen if they just wanted.
But if they chose Wen, they would one of them would have to kill
Wen. One of them have to kill Wen. So within that triplet of the 2 fathers and the daughter, one of them has to be the sacrifice, and the other 2 have one or both of the other 2 have to do the killing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Just trying to. This is like time travel. I'm trying to make sure I know the rules.
You have to set the rules for this because the way that this happens is very important. Now, they do say if you don't choose, the rest of humanity is going to die. 6 billion people, 6 billion plus people are going to die, and then they're going to have to wander the entire earth alone in the devastation.
So at this point right here, okay, you've heard them say this. When you first watched it, how did you think they were going to be able... What was your first impression of how they're going to go about convincing these 3 people to do this, to compelling them to this action?
Initially, I was like, okay, well, are they going to... Is there going to be something that happens that kind of triggers this? How are they going to really do this? And I kept thinking to myself back and forth. I'm like, okay, well, something has to come in. And what happened initially, I did not expect this to happen at all at first.
I'll be honest, when I first saw it, I thought this whole thing was going to be like a metaphor for disease. Like, I don't really even know how to explain that, but I thought it was just going to be I thought it was all just going to be very metaphoric. I didn't think it was actually going to be what they are purporting, which is that this is Armageddon if this family doesn't make the choice.
Yeah.
So what happens next? They've laid this gauntlet down, and I assume then Leonard basically says, "Will you choose to do it?" Correct?
In this one, Leonard, again, he reinforces to them that they all had visions of what's going to happen, and they try to reinforce to them that this is what's going to happen.
First, the cities will drown. The oceans will swell and rise up into a great fist and pound all the buildings and people into the sand and drag everything out to sea.
There is something wrong with you. With all of you, if you believe this.
Then a terrible plague will descend, and people will writhe with fever and mucus will fill their lungs.
This is psychotic. It's delusional. Did you try to get help? Let us go, and we'll get you help.
The skies will fall and crash to the earth like pieces of glass, and God's fingers will scorch the earth, and an everlasting darkness will descend over humanity.
Now, Eric again tries to reason with him, but Leonard says that for every no that they're given, they're going to release a plague on humanity. The family obviously refuses, and Redmond steps forward. Andrew screams that they said that they wouldn't hurt the family, but Redmond kneels, and you can tell that he's just terrified out of his mind. He's trembling, and he looks like he's about to cry, and then he asks them to look at him and not to look away. So as he's kneeling, he puts a hood over his head, and as light streaks through the window, Eric kind of gets a glimpse of something in the mirror behind Redmond. Now, I did pause this a bunch of different times. You can't really tell what he's seeing, but there is a light that flashes in the mirror.
I saw the light, but yeah, I know you're referencing something that Eric starts saying later in the film.
And
but
light
I never saw whatever he was talking about. I just saw the light, and I was like, yeah, I see that, but I didn't see any sort of figure in that.
Well, you can see something kind of move, but you can't really see the figure. And I think it's supposed to be that you don't know if he saw that exactly and it was just his mind affecting him, like, because is he just seeing a light or did he actually see something? I don't think we're supposed to see what he saw.
That kind of goes into that effect that on that video I sent you today.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, we found a way there. So Rupert Grint is kneeling in front of them, and
Redmond is kneeling in front of them.
Excuse me, Redmond.
Why do you always do
Rupert
this?
Grint.
You always talk about the actors. You got to talk about the characters. You say this actor is doing this.
So Rupert Grint is
Redmond
is kneeling, and he's got a hood on. What's happening next?
After they tell them again, no, they're not going to do anything, Redmond gets very calm for a second, and then he says, "A part of humanity has been judged," and then he's killed. Like the group actually kills him.
Like the other three.
Yeah, the other three.
Gotcha.
So when I say the group, that means the group. When I say the family, that's the family.
Right. But the entire group. It's not like one person within the group.
No, the rest of the group is.
And do we see the killing, or is it just kind of?
For this part, you do see killing. They stab him in the head, and then they all kind of do their thing.
But
and
you don't see the blade go in, right? I think you just see from behind, like you see like a blade is now there, and then like some blood trickling down.
Yeah,
I think you actually see like the actual violence taking place.
No, but you do see Leonard at one point as like his body slumps over. You do see Leonard like drop his axe or whatever tool he's carrying.
I think if I remember correctly, we kind of take a step back with the camera, right? We kind of put ourselves far away for that shot.
I think you're thinking of another one.
Maybe, but I feel like I seem to have kind of note in this film that M. Night kind of made this decision not to be too upfront with the egregious violence, and I think that was a smart decision because it helps us preserve some of the likability of like Leonard, you know, because if we get too close with his killing, we're going to start questioning our feelings about Leonard, and I think he wanted to keep us distant from that.
I think that is on the other killings. This one is pretty much shown, and I think there's a reason for that when you find out who Redmond is, because he's supposed to represent something.
Okay, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to rewatch that though, because I swear I swear we kind of took a step back for the killings.
I'm pretty sure on this one you actually see it, but we'll watch it again. Now, we are given another flashback of the first time that they held Wynn in an orphanage in a foreign country, and then you go back. So it does keep going back, and the reason I'm even talking about this flashbacks is because you're supposed to get the connection to the family. Because right now, you're kind of thrust into this moment where you don't really feel anything for this family. You're wondering why they're not just saying yes, but you need to feel for them. So they keep going back, and they introduce a little bit more about them. Go back, introduce a little bit more.
Well, it also helps us understand why the family was chosen.
Exactly.
Because, with it just being this family, it almost seems random. Like it could have been any. And there's even I think a line in there somewhere where it's like, well,
they didn't know who was going
to be there. It could have been anybody, but it couldn't have been anybody. This was a specific choice.
This is very clear. Now, the group, even though they knew what they were going to have to do, they're still in shock of what they actually had to just do to Redmond. And Leonard goes into the back, and this is where you even feel for him even more. He just starts throwing up. Now, they remove Redmond's body, and then Leonard turns on the TV, where a news break shows the aftermath of an earthquake. Now, Leonard tells everyone to keep watching, because you can hear that some of them are like, oh, where's this thing that we saw? Seeming like maybe something actually isn't going to happen, but he keeps telling the family and the group to watch. Now, as they are watching, a tsunami is shown to have rocked Hawaii. And then another earthquake happens while they're watching the show, and it's happened in the Portland area. The group confirms that this is exactly what they saw in their visions, and the video that is shown is exactly what they saw, even down to the rocks that they could see in the video.
And I think this is kind of the first time we get introduced to the idea that this group has visions.
Yeah.
Like before, we knew that there was something that quote unquote brought them together, and there was allusions to potentially seeing something. But this is the first time where they've concretely concurred. Yes, we saw this in a vision. This was shown to us collectively.
Well, Leonard did make mention of this earlier, where he did say they all had visions of this happening.
Right, but that's what I mean. Like,
this is the first time you see
those were all sort of alluding to just general ideas of visions, where this is like, that's exactly what I saw.
That's exactly, because
we're being told, very concretely, like the visions were this, as
and
opposed
this is
to just
what,
we were all given these, mysterious visions. And because when you hear somebody say that, you can kind of infer all sorts of nonsense. Like, well, what is your vision? Was it a guy? Was it a mountain? What? And nobody really gave any specifics. But then when we see this scene, then they're like all confirming, yep, that is what
exactly.
I saw.
Now the group then tells the family that they're going to need to make a choice in the morning, and it seems like they might actually be getting through to Eric. Now we do get another flashback where we see the family coming to the cabin, and they have a sing-along to the song Boogie Shoes, which I love that song, so I thought it was a really cool song to include in here, as they're pulling up, and it just shows them enjoying nature, they're jumping into the water, then they're just having a really good time, and then Eric wakes up, and then it's shown that Sabrina's taking care of Eric's head while explaining that she's not a religious nut, even though she knows that he thinks so, but that she truly had visions of these events and meeting the group. She tells Eric to trust in something more, and she tells him that they're on the family's side, that he needs to believe in something more than just what's going on right now. Now, Andrew does not believe any of this. He has already caught on to the fact that Leonard keeps checking his watch, and he told Eric, hey, he's been checking his watch this entire time, and that earthquake happened 4 hours before the group even came. He's like, they planned this whole thing. And he was really worried that Eric's falling for it, but Eric says, no, I'm not falling for this. Now, this is the time where Wynn makes a brief escape. I don't even know how they just let her just be, but she escapes from the basement and then runs out. Leonard does quickly catch her. And when she's brought back, Andrew tells the group that they're being targeted. He tells the group that they were attacked by someone who looked just like Redmond years ago, and that his name isn't even Redmond. He's like, I know who this is. His name is not Redmond. It's O'Bannon. Now, Adrian is kind of showing some doubt here, because she's like, we didn't even know who Redmond really was. He was just like, he posted on this message board, and then you get an inkling that they all met on this message board in their shared visions. So that Leonard tells them that, hey, they need to follow through with what they've planned to do. Adrian does make some breakfast for Wynn, and it's a kind of fun little scene where she's like, hey, after this you can come to the restaurant, while Andrew and Eric are plotting to make an escape. Andrew tries to push the group by telling them they are all suffering from a shared delusion, and that this is real, this happens all the time, and it's a modern invention, that basically whenever people think that they've seen something, collectively they'll all start believing the same thing. Leonard ignores this, and he tells them to choose again. He's like, we're going to ask for your answers very quick now. And this is where Adrian steps up. And she tells him that she's next and that she doesn't even want to be there. And then she's trying to get through to them, hey, just do something, because she didn't say it before, but she has a son that she really wants to save. She's like, please make a decision and save her son. And she's like, I had to watch my son die over and over and over again. Please do something.
His name is Charlie. He likes pancakes.
She means like in her visions.
In her visions, right. Yes. And the family again says no. And then Adrian kneels, same as Redmond, and she's very shaken up. But then it seems that this keeps happening, that they get very calm right before they're about to get killed. And they say another part of humanity has been judged.
I know. I picked up on that. That calmness right before they die, because you can tell they're shaken. Because obviously anybody who's about to be murdered, even if they're some true believer, and even if this was all fake and this was a cult or what have you, you're still going to feel that fear, that fight or flight response. It's built into us. But right at the end, each of them, before when they're saying the phrase, and what was it again? It's a part of humanity has been judged. It's all very calm, and it's almost chillingly calm. It's very just, another part of humanity has been judged. And they say it in this very low, monotone voice. It's
almost
terrifying.
Like it's not even them.
Right. That's kind of what I thought. It's almost like they've been like, it's, because if we're thinking of this as an ethereal experience of some sort of, supernatural ongoing, it almost makes you think, part of the deal here that these four who are willing to sacrifice themselves to go save humanity and convince this family that they need to sacrifice, right? That perhaps whatever is controlling this is allowing them to be relieved of their pain just before they're actually going to experience death, so they don't have to feel the trauma of it.
Exactly. They again turn on the TV and they see that the X9 virus has ramped up. It's like this virus that, kind of like COVID, it just ramped up and it's killing a lot of children. Now, Eric tells Andrew at this point that he saw something in the mirror. As we kind of talked about before, he sees something in the mirror and he's asked to say what he saw. Leonard's like, no, what did you see? And then Andrew kind of points out that the X9 virus has been going on for some time because he wants to try to get the whole group away from this. And that the group has made this entire scenario part of the ruse. They're like, no, you know that this infection was going on before. You just included it in your plan. It's at this point that the escape plan that they talked about before was kind of put in action, with Eric cutting his rope because Wynn had given him a knife earlier, and he cut his rope and he's distracting Sabrina and Leonard, while Andrew, who has also slipped his ropes, he gets away and he's running to the car to go get his gun. Sabrina knocks him to the ground, trying not to injure him too much because they all said, we don't want to hurt you. You just have to make the choices.
See, they keep saying that too. They're like, we don't want to hurt you. But also, in reality, they can't.
Yeah.
So Andrew runs the car, Sabrina in tow, and she takes him out pretty hard on his leg, right?
Yeah, because she's like, I don't want to hurt you, but I did hit you in your knee.
But she keeps saying, I don't want to. But in reality, she couldn't. If she had, it kind of would have screwed up this whole thing. Because it's like, well, you kill one of these people, and there's no guarantee that the sacrifice can even happen at that point. So you could have just doomed humanity by accidentally killing one of these people.
She does stab him, though. She stabs him right in the side.
Yeah, Jesus, that looked like it hurt.
Yeah, so he's getting into the car, and she knows that she can't really do that much to him, but she stabs him in the side, telling him she really just needs him to make a choice. But then he gets to his gun, and this is the part where I'm like, she could have found a way to do this. But no, he gets his gun, he shoots the tree behind her, and he says, I don't want to kill you. Just back the hell away from me. And she runs off. Now, Andrew runs into the house and stops Leonard, and he starts arguing with him. And he's pointing the gun. He's like, back the fuck away from him. I will shoot you. I don't want to, but I will kill you. And then you see Sabrina come running in from the back, and then she's shot. This is where we see another flashback where we get a little bit more into Andrew and why he's so angry. It's that he was assaulted by someone at a bar at one point when him and Eric were in the bar. And to be fair, it seems like he was kind of fucking asking for it. He did kind of pick this fight, but as he was kind of unsuspecting right now and he's just talking to Eric, he gets hit in the back of the head with a bottle and it just shatters in the back of his head. And this really causes some trauma to him. And he starts taking fighting lessons and he buys a gun. And this is kind of where you see where some of his anger at anyone trying to impose their will onto their family is kind of stemming from. Now, back in the present, Leonard places a hood over Sabrina's head, and he's asking if they made a decision, and they say no. And then he completes her part of the ritual by stating that another part of humanity is to be judged. Now, Leonard is dazed at this point, and Andrew runs to retrieve Redmond's wallet, and he does prove to him that Redmond was not Redmond. His name was Rory O'Bannon, and he is the man that assaulted him. And then, obviously at this point, Andrew feels vindicated, so he locks Leonard in the bathroom, telling him that he will kill him if he tries anything. He doesn't want to hurt him, but he will kill him. Now, when the family is in the living room, they hear the bathroom glass break, and they think that he escaped, and Andrew kind of goes in. He looks in the window, and me and my fiance Amanda were watching this, and we like, that hole is way too fucking small for Batista to fit through. So he sees that hole is too small. So he cautiously fires around the closed shower curtain just to make sure. When nothing happens, he lets down his guard, but then Leonard takes this time to pop out and grab the gun. He tells them to turn on the TV, and they'll see that he was actually telling the truth. Now, when he does turn on the TV, you can see that obviously something is happening. There's hundreds of planes that have fallen out of the sky. They think, like the news reporters reporting, that it could have been a cyber attack. They don't really know at this point. But then Eric repeats what Leonard had said earlier.
The skies will fall and crash to the earth like pieces of glass.
So he can see that, this is actually happening. Then he goes, and then Leonard looks at the group, and he starts saying exactly what the news reporter is saying it as she's saying it, just to prove this is real.
See, that's what I thought was odd, because he's doing that to prove the genuine nature of this event, right? Mm-hmm. But Eric, all this time, or not Eric, sorry, Andrew all this time has been accusing them of like pre-recording, and it's like, that could have just been you pre-recording. So I didn't really understand why that would have evidenced that this was real, because Andrew's already convinced that they pre-recorded these and they're playing them after the fact, and that, these aren't necessarily all happening right now.
I think that at this point, Andrew has to suspend his disbelief, because he's looking at the screen and hundreds of planes are falling out of the sky. All of these things together, he can't just say, these are just pre-recordings. Like, and that's a good point. At this point.
It's easy to to dismiss natural disaster. It's even in this day and age kind of easy to dismiss an outbreak of a disease, but it's a little bit harder to say, okay, we've had natural disaster, disease outbreak that's now gotten worse, and a bunch of planes falling out of the sky. So that's a fair point.
And these things are happening as Leonard has stated that they're going to happen. So now Andrew actually starts arguing with Eric and Leonard, because he's like, how did you know that this was going to happen? Like, how did you know what she was going to say? Because at this point, he fully understands, like, how the fuck do you know this? Eric is convinced, but obviously Andrew is defending his earlier statements. Leonard calmly tells him, can we step outside to do this last part? And this is actually one of the saddest parts in the whole movie to me, because Wynn is scared, and she also seems to believe, because she's like, are all the children gonna die? And then Eric tells her to go to the treehouse outside, because I guess there's this treehouse that they found earlier. They don't really show that they found that treehouse. It's just there. Now Leonard turns to Eric and Andrew, and he says, when he dies, they're only gonna have minutes to make a choice. He gives them one final farewell, even calling them his new friends. And it's I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but you do find out that Leonard was a teacher to a bunch of kids. And he does kind of say earlier in the film that, the kids that he coached, they're not very good, but, he loves these kids. And he has been the backbone of this entire group. He's the one that's kind of trying to convince them all, like, hey, please do this. But this is, I think, where I start to understand, and I don't know if you caught this as well, that this was going to happen no matter what. All of them were going to have to die to make this happen. Like, it's just something that has to happen, because he is the final part to this entire puzzle. He then gives them one final farewell, as I said, tells them to make the right choice, and then he gets calm as well, and he says, all of humanity has been judged, and he slits his throat.
Before you go on, there's one thing we kind of neglected to mention in the beginning, and it's important to understand why Eric has been more, I don't want to say susceptible, but let's say open to the concept of what's happening than Andrew. and it was. Do you remember? It's kind of early.
You talk about in the scene where he Andrew turns to him and says, "You can pray if you want to."
You can pray if you want to. Yeah, because I think the only reason for that line, and it's such a quick line, like it's so fleeting, but I think it was literally just to tell us, the audience, Andrew is not very religious, and Eric is. Eric is religious, and it's something that Andrew just kind of accepts about Eric, and is understanding that, he may in certain times and moments in their life want to, offer devotion to his God. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was really important, that, it was like, oh, okay, that's why Eric is kind of, even from that very first kill and that very first, showing the disaster is already we already start to see the glimmer of convincing him, even from those early moments.
Now, as soon as he dies, the skies darken, lightning strikes all around, confirming that all of this is real. They can dismiss all they want on the TV, but when it's right in front of them, they can't deny that. You can even see, I believe at one point, there's a plane that falls out of the sky. So Eric and Andrew go back to the living room and they talk about what needs to happen. Eric tells Andrew, the figure was real. He can feel it in the room with him.
Well, did I can't remember if it was this moment, but did Leonard convey, like right before he died, something to the effect of letting us know that they still had a few moments?
Yeah. They would only have a few minutes to make the choice.
Gotcha.
Eric says that the figure was real and he can feel it with him. He's like, I don't know if it's just my head. I don't know if I'm actually feeling that. Like, I don't know if this is something that's actually happening, but I feel calming right now. He says that he understands now that the group wasn't there to target them, but to show them the different parts of humanity. Redmond is malice. Adrian is nurturing. Sabrina is healing, and Leonard was guidance. They are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Now, Andrew and Eric sit there and they argue about whether they should save the world, because Andrew's spiteful. He says the world has hated them. They've been persecuted, that there's really nothing for them to do. He's like, screw the world, we can do this by ourselves. But Eric is being compassionate. He's telling them that no, that we need to do this. We need to save this. We need to save the future that I'm seeing a vision of right now, because he starts having a vision of his daughter in the future. Like she's met someone that she's loved. Her and Andrew are going about, and they're living their lives, because he's come to basically realize and accept that he is the one that has to die. And he explains that they were chosen for a reason. He's like, because our love is so pure, and that this is something that we have to sacrifice for all of humanity. I think this is supposed to be a allusion to the love that Jesus had for everyone in the Christian faith, and that they have to give up something for themselves to sacrifice for humanity as well.
See, I didn't actually... I mean, I understand the propensity to want to look at this from a Judeo-Christian lens, but wasn't there some insinuation that this is something that happens not necessarily regularly, but does happen every so often, where there's a group or a family or a unit chosen, and then another group that's chosen to come explain to them, and then that group is offered visions? Isn't there some insinuation of that that this is a regular occurrence, at least maybe every 1,000 years or so?
No, there's nothing in the movie that says that. Is
that the book that I'm thinking of?
I think you might be thinking of the book.
Okay.
Because if you read into the book, that's what's happening. But in the movie, the only kind of hint that you get of that is at one point Leonard does say, you are the family that's been chosen in this time, but that's the only thing that you
I think
hear.
That's exactly what I'm thinking of, in this time. I think I was thinking of that as though that's an insinuation of this has happened before, it will happen again. This is a kind of a regular requirement. It's like, well, it's been 1,000 years, time to go ahead and sacrifice one of these humans to keep this thing running.
That's neither here nor there on what's actually happening in the situation. If that is what happens every 1,000 years, that's what happens. If it's Judeo-Christian, that's another thing. But in this moment, Eric tells Andrew, look, I'm feeling very peaceful right now. I don't want to let this moment go. Just kill me. So Andrew does shoot him. And then Wynn, I think, already knew what was going to happen, because she said, did Daddy Eric save the world? Like she fully knew that something was going to actually happen here. Andrew and Wynn leave in the truck that the group had arrived in, as their tires had been previously slashed. And they arrive at a diner of people that are just watching news reports that seem to signal the end of the disaster. Leaving the diner, he sees little trinkets showing like the award that Leonard received that's signed by all of his students. You see Sabrina's badge from the hospital that she worked at. Then you see a picture of Adrian's son, which is, it's kind of reaffirming something that was said earlier in the movie where Adrian said that she had a son, but that Andrew was like, for a minute, I did not think that she had a son. Like, never for a minute did he think that she actually had a kid, because he didn't believe any of this. And then you see Rory's work badge as well at the gas company that he had mentioned working at. Now they start the car, and immediately the song Boogie Shoes comes on. And as I mentioned before, this is the song that they were listening to as they pulled in, and then Andrew turns it off. And then Wynn turns it back on for a second, and then she stops it, and then Andrew turns it back on for the last time, and they drive away as the song plays.
And I think it's this ending that I think it reaffirms what your theory was in terms of why M. Night decided to change the ending.
Yeah.
Because he could have stopped this thing right after they, like even before they got to the car. They could have just been walking down the road together or gotten in the car and ended it, right? And we all could have been left to assume that it was all true, or even maybe it wasn't all true, but that it was all true and that they had, stopped it. But he wanted to give the audience confirmation that it had, in fact, that it was all true and that it had, in fact, ended. He wanted us to feel a sense of closure. So I think that kind of affirms your theory on why he decided to change the ending. So since we're there, AJ, what was the ending in the book?
So actually, I did just find this now, just so we can already have a definitive answer. They did choose to do this because this is going to be a release for a very large audience, and they felt that the book made it too dark, which it was, because the original ending of this book has Wynn dying whenever Adrian is about to be killed. So Wynn dies, but then it's pointed out the death that happened didn't count because it wasn't a decision that they made. So Sabrina actually is the one that kills Leonard later on, and then she gives them the same speech that Leonard did before killing herself too, because she wants to take herself out of the equation. Now, neither Eric or Andrew wanted to be alone, so they just let the world end. That's pretty much the insinuation there.
See, I actually read something that suggested that
it might not have
been real. Yeah, so I think that was, which is odd, because, that's M. Night all over the place, ending a film to where you kind of have that feeling of, well, is everything I thought true, not true? But he also does seem to wrap things up pretty well. That's the big thing about his twist endings. So let's start there. There was no fucking twist, AJ.
There was a twist.
There was no fucking twist.
There was a twist if you weren't truly paying attention. The twist is that these people were the four horsemen of the apocalypse.
See, I read somebody try to make that argument, and I was like, bullshit. That's not a twist. It's definitely not an M. Night level twist.
No, it's not an M. Night level twist, but it is kind of a twist in itself.
But that was something you could start to kind of insinuate. Like, I don't know about you, when I realized it was four people and it was a discussion about the apocalypse, I immediately made that.
Four horsemen of the apocalypse.
I didn't need the film to go, oh, it's the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Like, yeah, no shit. That's pretty obvious imagery that you're going for here. Now, I didn't make the kind of connection that they did with Malice and all that. Of the the naming of the horses. I didn't put that complete picture together, but the very clear insinuation was four people come to deliver the apocalypse. That's clearly a reference to the four horsemen. I didn't buy that at all. There was no twist, and other people pointed that out. This was not an M. Night twist movie, and that's okay.
Maybe it's him trying to do something a little bit different. Where
honestly,
it's a little...
maybe that's the twist. No twist. He's like, twist. There is no twist. You son of a bitch. Now, do you have any problems with this film? Because I have one. It's not necessarily a problem with the film. The film is fine in terms of continuity, wrapping things up, characterization. It's fine. But I had one major problem with the film. Did you have any problems with this film?
I didn't really have any major problems. There was a couple things that were a little to me. Why they let Wynn go the way they did. Andrew's characterization seemed a little too...
kind of beating us over the head a bit.
Yeah, because it was like, all right, so you're just very, very angry. I get that, but you can see all this stuff happening.
But also just they were constantly trying to make it so that Andrew thought he was being targeted for
being gay.
But it was like, even if he felt they were being targeted, fine. But it didn't necessarily feel like there was never any sort of indication that it was because they were gay.
No.
It was very clear that this was, that they came to this place having no idea who was going to be there, And I believed that. I believed that even from characters who initially we are given camera angles, we're given dialogue that it leads us to distrust them too, to put us in the same shoes as Andrew. So I that was the only problem I had. I was like, okay, Andrew, I'm right there with your skepticism. Like you and I are on the same page on skepticism, but I think you can let go of the "this is because we're gay" thing and just look at it as you've targeted us and you're nuts. And it doesn't have to be for a specific reason, because I think that was part of the problem is, if we truly believe these people to be nothing more than a doomsday cult and all of this is just a fabrication in their minds, then I don't think that really had anything to do with any sort of prejudice. I think they're just nuts.
I mean, think about it this way, though. He did catch on that Redmond looked exactly like the guy that did.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It was a huge part of his characterization. I get that.
But it shouldn't have been everything.
That's the problem, is everything. But that also still was not the problem I had with this film. Okay, so here's my problem. They've subverted the apocalypse. Okay, and Andrew and Wen, they go away in the car, yada, yada, yada. I want you to look at this 5 months down the line.
Oh, I thought about this too.
Did you? Okay, you know where I'm going here?
How the fuck are they going to explain all the bodies?
What the fuck, right? Like, okay, the plane crashes have been investigated, and they're kind of getting to the tail end of those investigations and have figured it out. They're wrapping up the issue with the earthquakes, and they've done some disaster relief. They've released vaccines, and they're doing, let's not even say 5 months. Let's say a year from now. And then somebody gets to that fucking cabin, and it's like, yeah, okay, it was on fire, but there's a lot of fucking bodies here.
I mean, that could easily be explained away, though.
With what?
Well, first of all, you got the fact that, okay, you have one person there. I don't think he took the gun with him. If he put the gun there in Eric's hand, and he's the only body left, you could assume that Eric shot himself. You don't know how he killed him. You don't know where the bullet went.
I mean, you could, but here's me as an investigator looking at this situation. There are 5 bodies in this house. Okay, the 4 in the group and Eric. Okay. And I know, even if I can't identify these bodies, I don't even need to identify the bodies. I know who rented the fucking cabin, because as you pointed out, there are brochures and shit. So we know this is either an Airbnb or some sort of rental situation. So there's a paper trail.
The Airbnb person died.
Even if the Airbnb, there's a paper trail somewhere. You're going to be able to find who rented this thing. You're going to be able to find it was this couple, Eric and Andrew, and their daughter Wen. And so then you're going to be like, okay, well, where's the other husband and the daughter? And then you're going to find them, and you're going to start asking questions like, what the fuck?
That's also an easy thing to explain away. There's obviously signs that they were captured. They could easily say they were captured, they fought their way out, and then they left after Eric got killed.
I think if they go straight to the police now and say that, they can probably get away with that. You're right. Like, if that's... But, and obviously, we
don't know.
We're not going to know, and that it would be ridiculous for M. Night to go, okay, now let's find out what happened when they went to the police. Because
that's a twist.
That's a whole that's a whole other fucking... Yeah, he goes to the police, and they're aliens. That's the twist. That's a whole other fucking movie if we start going down that line. But, yeah, if they go to the police and they immediately report, like, hey, we were kidnapped by these crazed people. They were able to, kill my husband. Because, like you said, the house is on fire. Yeah. They're not going to be able to... And what investigator is going to put them through that?
The house does burn down, too.
It burns down. So lots of the evidence is going to be gone. So they're going to be able to just say, hey, these people kidnapped us. They killed my husband, but I was able to wrestle the gun away, kill some of the
lightning strikes happened.
Some of them committed suicide, and, all this craziness was going on, and they were like a doomsday cult, and they were somehow convinced that we were a part of this, but I was able to get me and my daughter away, right? Now he's also going to have to convince Wen, like, hey, Wen, don't fucking say anything, because daddy's about to lie his ass off.
I think she would be accepting, though, considering how accepting she was that her dad just killed himself to save the world.
That's a good point. And she definitely struck me as a very smart little
she
girl.
had some emotional maturity for a young
absolutely
child.
But yeah, because of that emotional maturity, or wherever that emotional maturity may have spawned from, there is clear even from her conversations early when she was talking about, nobody else in my class has 2 daddies, but I have 2 daddies, but that's okay.
And then she also mentions the caseworker or something like that, or whoever she's talking to at school, and she's like, well, she says it's okay, but then it seems like that the way that she says it says it's not. I thought that was kind of funny.
Right.
Or she can catch on.
And I
with
got that too.
somebody's-
Like she's like, yeah, she seems like she might be trying too hard. So yeah, there's clearly some emotional maturity there. So you're right. She might be able to get with it. But I'm sorry, I'm taking us way off course here. I just thought that was funny. Of like, how are you going to explain these 5 burnt fucking bodies in a
thought that
cabin in the
too.
woods?
That was one of my first thoughts after this movie, and I was like, how the fuck are they?
I was about to say, I was like, there's no way you weren't thinking the same fucking thing. Looking at that, going, wait a minute. let me put my investigator hat on here.
So if you didn't catch it already, like obviously I caught it in the beginning, you caught it in the beginning, you can catch on very early that they are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. There are 7 knocks at the door.
Is that supposed to be the 7 seals?
Yeah, 7 seals.
Okay. Now, after we started talking about the 4 horsemen, the Judea... See, I think this is starting to give you more credence for your idea that Eric is kind of a representation of Jesus. Because, obviously we've got the 4 horsemen.
Well, not that he's Jesus, but that...
Jesus-like.
some sort of... And the fact that he has to play that role again. Right. And maybe that was the
let's not say Jesus, let's say a martyr.
He's a martyr.
He's absolutely a martyr, and it does seem to be a martyr in that Judeo-Christian tradition. Yeah. Absolutely. So, yeah, and that as soon as we started talking about the 4 horsemen, I was like, oh, I bet that's what the 7 is. It's the 7 seals.
Well, did you also catch that they all wore the shirts of the color horse that they were supposed to be riding, and that they arrived in the right order?
Oh, no, I did not. Yeah. See, no, that's a twist.
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's actually really freaking cool.
It's so twisty. So yeah, I still wouldn't call it a twist. But
it's not a twist, but
I would
just
say
funny.
it's very creative characterization. I like that. I always love when filmmakers do that. Where
they allude to something.
Yeah, where they start putting like those little hints in
Easter eggs
that compound, because it's fine if you're just going to put in random Easter eggs. It's like, sure, like the pack of cigarettes thing with
Quentin Tarantino.
With Quentin Tarantino, it's like, it's fine, but it doesn't really mean anything. It's just something he likes to do. But I like it when filmmakers compound things on the characterization, so that there's it's building on a strong foundation of that characterization. These are supposed to be the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Well, let's put them in the right shirts. Let's make them show up in the right order. Let's give them the right character backgrounds that would kind of pertain to how that horseman would behave and would be perceived by society. I love that. I love that, that creativity in that characterization. It's fantastic.
What I really like is that in a lot of M. Night Shyamalan's films, if you actually if you do watch them, he does that a lot, where he gives you a lot of foreshadowing. Because if you caught on like The Sixth Sense, you could tell that he was dead before.
Oh, absolutely.
Because some of the things he says and how characters interact with him.
That's what he's good at. He's good at, because with the 4 horsemen thing, it's like, okay,
it's obvious. It's obvious.
You don't need the other clue, the other context clues to be able to tell this is clearly alluding to the 4 horsemen. But he still puts them in. But he wanted to put them in. Whereas the thing you get to see with things like The Sixth Sense or Unbreakable,
Signs, or The Village,
you get to see that he was telling you all along, but he is very talented at telling you without telling you.
Exactly.
So, yeah, the signs were there all along, but I am not going to sit here and be pretentious enough to say that I saw what was coming in Signs. I saw what was coming in Unbreakable. I saw what was coming in The Sixth Sense. I had no fucking idea.
Nope.
And I loved that he always goes back and says, hey, look at what I showed you the whole way through that you weren't really paying attention to, but I wanted you to see it without seeing it. I love that he does that.
Now, I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm actually very proud of M. Night Shyamalan, because I am a fan of his, and I'm glad that I was able to see another movie by his and feel satisfied. The last movie that I saw by him that wasn't like the sequel to Unbreakable, Glass and Split, I don't count those because you're going to get me with sequels 100%.
Oh, yeah.
And great that they're M. Night Shyamalan films, but what I really wanted was another spooky M. Night Shyamalan film that actually made me feel like I was enjoying something, and that's what I missed.
So I'm going to give you a tagline for this film, and you tell me what you think. All right, we're in the market. You and I are now in the marketing department. I'm going to give you a tagline: Saw, but make it religious.
I was thinking Shammy-Lammy Wing Dang Ding Dong.
But I don't know why. From the very beginning, when they're going up there and like, you're going to have to choose, all I could do was hear Jigsaw in the back of my head going, live or die, Make your choice.
We actually just started watching the Saw movies again.
Did you really?
Yeah.
It's a good time to watch them. It's a great. You know what? Maybe that's what I should do next.
Spooky season.
It's spooky season. I love this time of year.
How are you guys enjoying the spooky season? By the way, I know we've only done a couple episodes, but I'm really thinking about a list of movies that we can put together. I actually have a friend that's actually a paranormal investigator with Celestial Shadows Investigation. His name is Sebastian. We might actually have him on the podcast at some point to give us some insight on some spooky stuff. And this is his season.
Ooh, you know what we could do? We could watch Paranormal Activity. We could cover that one and have him tell us
what's wrong about that.
Like what's wrong with the film, like from a paranormal investigator's standpoint of like, yeah, we would never fucking do this. Well, AJ, where can we watch Knock at the Woods? Or Knock at the Cabin, excuse me. I keep wanting to say Cabin in the Woods and Knock at the Cabin.
I kept thinking that
too. I keep wanting to combine these two because they both have that cadence of Cabin in the Woods, Knock at the Cabin.
But, I mean, they're obviously two different movies. The really major platform that you can see it on that seems like everyone has nowadays is Amazon Prime. You can watch it for free if you have a subscription. You will have to pay if you want to watch it on Redbox, YouTube, Google Movies, or Vudu. But Amazon Prime is where you can watch it for free.
Well, thank you for taking on this journey, AJ. That was a good film.
Yeah, thank you.
Our music is created by Augusto Denise, logo by Design World, mixing and editing by IPTT Studios, and special thanks to studio dog Joe the Boxer.
And we want to hear from you in your own slice of toast. Tell us about the films that you think we and others should see, actors to showcase, or topics to discuss. You can reach us on Instagram at IPTT_podcast, email us directly at IPTTpodcast@gmail.com, or interact with us directly through the Spotify app.
And if you ever find yourself trapped in a cabin in the woods with Dave Bautista and Ron Weasley deciding if humanity is even worth it anymore, remember,
you can always get more toast.
Thanks for listening.